bounty hunters. We don't need that scum.
I'll take on any job for the right price.
You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them allowed. No disintegrations.
As you wish.
Captain Crossman.
He's all yours, bounty hunter.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Welcome in to the Carbonite Chronicles, presented by the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th century. This show is dedicated in reviewing and celebrating the Disney Plus shows The Mandalorian and now the Book of Boba Fett. My name's Matt.
I'm Jared.
I'm Mike.
Mike apparently crawled out of the Sarlacc this week.
He did. He got a hold of that stormtrooper's air hose and fought his way out.
I'm curious, Mike. Was it a steaming pile of goo from Boba's flamethrower, or was it still kicking when you crawled out?
Oh man, I just want to tell you, it was warm and moist in there.
Oh boy!
You had to drop the moist word, huh?
God Almighty! What has happened here?
Has anybody found out why the stormtrooper was in there? I mean, I'm sure he's in there for a while. He's probably,
He went over the dune to take a leak, and he tripped.
Yeah, I'm saying he's a New Hope stormtrooper. That's what I'm saying.
I have to say, I'm glad they answered the question of how he got out, but they have raised a new, brand spanking new question. How did that stormtrooper get there?
Yeah. I mean, I guess they couldn't show us another guy who had an air supply.
Yeah.
And
why didn't we see any of the other dudes that fell
Well,
in?
it goes down a long way.
Yeah, I mean, the Sarlacc is mini-chambered.
Yeah.
Is it like a cow? It has multiple stomachs?
Well, according to the various reference books I have on its anatomy, of course. Hey, Matt, when you were at Galaxy's Edge, did you see the Sarlacc baby that they had in one of the shops?
I didn't see it. No, you know what? I did in one of the shops?
Yeah, they had it's like an animatronic, but they
you can see the whole thing.
They had it.
No,
yeah, it was.
I missed it.
It's really cool.
It was like the Tatooine Mardi Gras when I was there.
Oh yeah, you were telling us that.
I couldn't even move. It was so busy.
Man.
But guys, we just got off watching episode 3 of the Book of Boba Fett, the Streets of Mos Espa, and I got to warn everybody before we start. We're probably gonna spoil some stuff.
Oh
for
yeah,
you. So if you haven't watched this show yet,
I got the spoiler Walkman ready.
Nice way to pull that out of the.
Here we go. I'm gonna hit the.
Cruising Mos Espa in my DeLorean.
No better than the monkey.
Story of Star was a story.
I gotta hit fast forward and stop. Okay, that's it. Spoiler alert. Here we go.
We're gonna spoil the show for you guys. So if you haven't watched it, watch it. And if you don't want to watch it, just listen to us.
I tell you what. Apparently, Robert Rodriguez has already spoiled the show for a great many fans.
Oh,
judging from the social media reactions I'm seeing.
Yeah,
and
he spoiled this episode.
No, he directed this episode, and apparently everyone hates it.
Yeah,
what?
Yes,
it's getting a lot of. You know what? Look, I watched it, and there are some things in this episode that I really, really liked, and there's some things in this episode that I could really have done without.
Okay,
and I think we should talk about them all right now.
What do people not like about it?
Okay, I'll tell you what I don't like about it right now is that they recruited Griff Tannen's gang from Back to the Future Part 2 to be in Star Wars. They do not belong there. They don't look like they belong there. I hate their stupid Vespas that they're driving. And I thought that whole scene was really terrible.
Okay, so let's deconstruct that a little bit. Let's unpack a little more.
Because this is what I don't like about it. Everything else I loved, but I just watched this episode again right before we started. Mm-hmm. And I really think there's some inexcusable direction going on in this in this
Yeah.
this chase.
I think. Well, first off, the chase is the most underwhelming speeder bike / speeder chase ever. I mean, it is truly the most underwhelming part of the whole show, and it's supposed to be the most one of the most exciting, and it really is just awful. But look, we'll talk about what I love about the show in a second, but let's get this off our chest, all this stuff. So, as a crime lord, Boba Fett is dealing with a watermonger, and you know what? The story seems small for someone who has Jabba the Hutt had this. You have this impression that Jabba's reach was enormous, that his empire stretched far and wide in the criminal organizations, and his hands or slugtail was in everything, right?
Yes.
And not that a watermonger isn't part of that empire, but it doesn't really seem important. And the payoff was a bunch of Gen Z, whiny, flashy, lame Borg knockoff, biker punks with shiny bikes that didn't belong in a grimy, sandy, poor part of Mos Espa, And they're the ones terrorizing this watermonger. It was lame. And not to mention, the casting, the acting was awful from these. I don't know why they were in it. And it just didn't make sense. It felt small. And look, the only reason they were in there, the only reason was because Boba Fett is trying to rule with respect, and he earned the respect of a biker gang of Vespas. And now they're on his side because they respect him. And that was a lame way of doing it, because there could have been 1,000 better ways.
To your point, I do think they don't seem to really fit into Mos Espa, because you're right, they were kind of clean and pristine and all that.
Better get the shelter, Annie. The storm's coming.
That's not the same Mos Espa as what I just saw.
To say they don't belong in the Star Wars universe, I mean,
no, I could totally see them on Coruscant.
That's
completely on Coruscant. In a
right.
bar.
I'm just saying though, when it comes to Star Wars, it's not everything's a home run.
You take that angle, though. It could have easily been a transplant gang from Coruscant, and they could have had
maybe
we're stuck here.
Maybe we get
we're
some
stuck
more
here,
on them. I don't know.
Yeah, how do we know that's not their story?
Maybe the case, but I hope it's not, because I don't want to see it
now.
again.
As far as the chase, I thought, considering it was for TV, you're right. It wasn't like the best chase ever. I thought it was fine, but
the gratuitous Macquarie painting getting trashed.
But
if you saw that,
yes.
But everything else was so good that, to be honest with you, I don't even really think about it.
Your concern was that Boba's dealing with, watermongers. Well, they sort of explain that once Jabba died, after the Sailbodge disaster, his territory shrunk dramatically. And then they talked about how once
it's like any time some top, look at Alexander the Great, his kingdom
100%.
was divided. Same thing happened with Muhammad,
And they even
go ahead.
They break down for him, hey, the Trandoshans control the center of the city, the Aqualish control the whatever, and the Klatooinians control the outer sprawl. And it's not like Boba automatically assumes this. Sorry for my dog Chewbacca. Maybe Black Chrysanthemum's trying to get in my house. But Boba doesn't have the same scope of responsibility, I guess, that Jabba did. Because when Bib took over, he just got a little piece of the pie. And that's kind of what Boba's inherited.
Plus, Boba's new at this.
Yes.
I agree. I'm not going to fault him for that stuff. I liked little things. You know what? Let's talk about.
But the ships looked incredible. Everything
great.
else looked incredible. The Hutts.
I got to tell you what I thought was a big win. There were some things there were scenes in it, like when the Starliner was coming in.
Now, I will say this: I noticed.
Mm-hmm.
To me, there was when they were showing the people walking past the ships. I thought the key looked a little funky on those people crossing in front of the ship. That was Obi-Wan on Geonosis' weird green screen or something.
That.
I mean, it looked like they're out.
Like when they were coming out of the Starlight?
No, when people were just walking past it, their outline was hazy.
Well, I think generally the live action shows do a good job of keeping up the visual continuity from the feature films, and it still looks great.
Yeah, I agree.
I still think you could watch this in a movie theater, but sometimes you see the seams.
Right.
So anyway, let's start talking about the story here of this episode.
I thought Boba Fett getting out of the Tusken situation worked well, because him leaving and coming back and the tribe is slaughtered kind of like solved a problem for me, because I'm like, how long are they going to drag him out in this tribe? And although we know, they got slaughtered by a biker gang and he has to probably go take retribution on that, that at least puts him in a direction.
Now, do you think they killed all of them? Because that pile looked very small.
I think that the long-haired one is still out there.
I think we have a rescue scene coming.
Yeah, I agree. But at least it moves him out of the tribe and puts him in a direction. Because I'm like, how long are they going to sit him there? But I did say, I was amused that apparently everywhere on Tatooine is pretty accessible by a few hours ride on a bantha.
That's any show, though, to be honest.
However,
we watch 24 and they get across the city in like 5 minutes, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I think the scene of him on the bantha was like, if we're talking about how crappy the chase was, I thought that was like the most cinematic scene in the show so far. With the music playing and him just on that bantha and the shots of the bantha and him. I thought that was amazing. It was great.
Yeah, I agree. We saw Pele and her little droids walking in Mos Eisley.
Yeah, walking across the street.
And you got to figure what this is like. This is just around Jedi. Right after Jedi, because they're putting the stormtrooper heads on pikes and stuff. So they must have just won the war. And
yes, so shortly after Jedi. I gotta wonder, did they? Because he rode that bantha. Did they trash all the speeders that they had?
Maybe they stole them.
Maybe they took them back.
Well,
maybe.
I wonder. I think they
how many survived the train run, though?
No, I don't think the speeders survived the train run, because they all abandoned them to jump on the train, and they crashed the speeders.
Right. Because
otherwise, I'm thinking like, man, why are you driving a car when you could have taken an airplane? But
so there's something also I'm going to jump around a bit here, but like something that was set up in the previous episode that was possibly concluded in this episode was the Hutt's involvement.
Oh, I do not.
I'm hoping the Hutts haven't disappeared. I hope they haven't.
I think they're setting some sort of trap for everyone. They're putting stuff into play, and they're going to pop back in.
So here's where one of the big wins and big losses of the show, all in one, happened for me. When Black, how do you pronounce his name? Chrysanthemum, such a cool name and such a cool character. Rips him out of the back to tank. I'm not gonna lie, I jumped a little. They got me.
Did you pee your pants?
I peed my pants.
I wet them.
I wookied. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then I'm thinking, okay, so he snuck into the palace, found him somehow, which is great. So there is some backstory that Chrysanthemum did work for Jabba as a bounty hunter, I see, in the legend. So maybe that we'll just assume that he knew his way around the palace.
Well, he wasn't in Legends, was he, Jared? Isn't he a Marvel?
He wasn't in Legends. He's a Marvel creation from post.
Oh, he's Well, in Marvel, he worked for Jabba, right?
He was a bounty hunter.
So let's just assume he knew the palace, which is fine. But coming to his rescue is the Gen Z gang really bothered me. I'm thinking, we're the Gamorreans, and they came in late. But it's the Gen Zers that are coming in and fighting Black
Gen Zers are in better shape than the Gamorreans.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But I think Chrysanthemum he maybe climbed from the outside. Like I don't think he was sneaking through the palace. I think he probably scaled a wall or something and got in there. I thought that was a great scene. And, I don't think the Gen Zers, they didn't best him. I mean, he was holding his own with everybody until he fell into the pit.
Yeah.
But good grief, I thought he was, man, Tamora Morrison was, he was where was the blood? He punched him with those electrified brass knuckles, and then he bit his hand.
He threw him across the room
he
on
was
a hard stone floor. And
and then,
he just got out of the Bacta. The Bacta's still working for him.
Do you know what I noticed, too, that I thought was cool? I don't know if you noticed this, but whenever I feel like they slowed him down when he moved to make him look...
Who, the Wookiee?
Yeah, to make him look...
More menacing,
more massive, but then they would speed it up whenever he would throw Boba Fett to add speed to it.
It's possible.
That's because it kind of like remind me like Godzilla movies. You know how they slow him down when he's
when he's crushing.
It just felt like they did that with the Wookiee to make him look more.
I only saw this episode once. I have to watch it again. But so far, he's one of my favorite characters of the show,
and I think he's going to be back. And I think he's an ally.
Well, yeah, that was another thing I really liked is when Boba Fett lets him loose, that look he gives Boba Fett.
Yep.
And whoever that actor is, being able to emote through suit.
His name is Kerry Jones.
His eyes. If you see his eyes,
yes.
I mean,
he looks like he looks a lot like Idris Elba. Outside the suit.
What's his name?
Kerry Jones. One thing that I found amusing is like he's like, "You're free to go." And he just sort of jogs off.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, oh,
where's he
see
going?
you later.
What's he doing? Like, I mean, did he run off to catch up with the Hutts who were still being carried down that hill by those poor people?
I'm having doubts that Tatooine itself.
Oh, he played a predator. That makes sense.
Oh, that does make sense.
Yeah.
I'm having doubts that Tatooine, even though it's a desert planet, is particularly hot. I'm not getting the impression that Tatooine, with all its sand and sun, is that hot. Even with twin suns, it seems like a pretty mild place.
I don't know. I think in those first couple episodes, I mean, you saw like his head getting blistered when he's out in the sun all the time.
I'm not saying he's not going to get sunburned, but Tamora Morrison's walking around with heavy robes on. You got a Wookiee having no problem running around.
How is this different from 1977?
Is that Wookiee? Is he shedding his undercoat?
Well, I don't know. But look, back in the original movies, it was the same. I mean,
I know.
Luke's not walking around sweating going, "Uncle Owen, turn on the AC."
Well, another thing, too, I mean, did this poor guys carry those Hutts all the way across the desert?
Yes.
Yeah, they did.
I can only think there was a ship behind a dune.
There's suspension. There's suspensor.
They don't care. That's the way they are. They're gonna.
Dude, I love how miserable those people look who are holding that thing.
It is a great part of the show.
They are really selling the misery because that litter is sagging.
Yeah.
Oh man, and those
he pulled
Hutts,
another rodent out to mop his sweat off.
And the Hutts, man, the way they sit all intertwined with each other. Oh.
It is such a good. They are awesome. It is really cool that they're showing it that way. I think it's great.
It's kind of a different way to look at them too.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't know what's happening yet. We can speculate, but the mayor of Mos Espa is missing. His major domo says that he's joined the Pikes. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know but obviously the major domo is a suspicious guy.
Yes.
Who can't and
apologies.
So I'm not quite sure where the show's going yet.
Well, it's all going to tie in. The two stories are going to tie in together somehow.
Well, here's a thing that I've picked up on watching this show, and I think I know why some people feel the way they do about it. The Mandalorian, while it had that dramatic through line in each season, I've got to watch over Grogu, and now I've got to get Grogu to a Jedi. That was like the main arc. But the episodes were episodic. They had a beginning, a middle, and an end, for the most part. When I watch the Book of Boba Fett, I feel like
it's meant for a single viewing.
I feel like somebody's pausing the movie and saying, "I got to go to the bathroom. Let's come back to this in a week." That's the way I feel about.
It's funny you say that because one of the gripes about the Mandalorian, because the way you say it's episodic, is that they were side quests.
Yes.
Yeah.
So people, you just can't make people happy.
No, you can't.
No, you're right. But it would be funny if somebody recut the Book of Boba Fett when it was done
into
not just a movie, but like they took the bits of like his Tuscan life and made it into a section, and You know,
Mhm.
almost like what they did for The Godfather. If you ever, they took the Godfather saga and they
yeah.
actually put it in chronological order, which is an interesting watch.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It'd be interesting if somebody did that for the Book of Boba Fett as well.
Oh, I'm sure they will eventually get around to that. But
even include like the Mandalorian part.
But I'm not seeing the traditional episodic for like the first episode ended with Boba just taking a drink of that thing and ended in the middle of a flashback, and it's like whoa, that's the end. And the second episode ended a little bit more definitively, but this episode also, it's like, all right, let's go to war, and it's like no,
I will say though that even with the biker gang and that pretty lame speeder chase, I'm still loving this show. And I'm loving it because I'm in prime Star Wars territory for myself.
This show feels like Star Wars.
Yeah,
this is like Rogue One Star Wars.
Yes.
I love it. I love every bit of it. I love how Mike, we talked about it last week. I love the fact that we're on Tatooine right now. I like being on Tatooine. It's, Jared said, what'd you call it? It's like
it's home.
It's like home for Star Wars. And I'm really loving it. Even with the silliness and stuff, I love every bit of it.
It's the fact now, on a weekly basis, I'm going into Jabba's palace and seeing new stuff.
Yeah.
I bet something you couldn't even conceive of 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, hey, there's going to be a TV series starring Boba Fett where he lives in Jabba's castle. What? Okay, sign me up.
Well, I was just going to say, I want to talk about my favorite part of the show, which we haven't touched on, surprisingly, is the whole rancor stuff.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I mean, that, and to me, first of all, to have the surprise of Danny Trejo.
Yes.
Yeah, so cool.
Because they show him from a wide shot, and I'm like, is that Danny Trejo? That looks like Danny
Trejo.
And I guess he's big buddies with Rodriguez, so I guess that makes sense that he would be in it.
Makes sense.
But he's so
perfect. He's so
Star
Wars.
Fits.
Yeah.
The rancor looks like, as fake as it looks in Jedi, it looks like there was a rancor on set.
I remember.
You're right.
Remember Mike's biggest complaint of Jedi? He didn't like how the rancor looked.
No, you can tell it's a big puppet, but or little puppet actually. And the whole, and that to me again, where Tamora Morrison shines in his performance when he is petting that rancor, and you could just see how delighted. First, he's apprehensive, and then it's like, to me, I think they're kind of making the rancors like pit bulls. They're like, their behavior's based on their owner, and I just, when he's sitting there scratching it and like, yeah, I think he likes this, and it's like you could tell he's delighted to have this thing. Like, oh yeah, this is cool. Yeah, can you ride these? I want to ride this.
And you know what's funny is that this show has no qualms about bringing in things like the holiday special and making them canon, which is kind of funny because it's something that Lucas always hated and would never admit to be canon. It's become like in The Mandalorian, we hear about Life Day. This Jared wisely called out on our chain earlier that, he said, I've ridden beasts 10 times as big as this.
And it's the dinosaur from the holiday special.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love how Favreau and Filoni are making the holiday special canon in their own way. I think it's great because you know what? It's become like a thing of love for the fans too. Even though it's silly, people love it and they embrace it. Yeah. So I think it's great. I mean, when I was at Galaxy's Edge, they had Life Day Chewbacca's for sale in a bin. It was I took a picture. I took a picture. Let me find it.
The bargain bin.
No, it wasn't. It was expensive.
I have to get one of those. I need to make the drive over.
I should have bought one. It was so busy I didn't pick it up. But I mean, they're making it canon, which is fun, and that's the talent, right? That's the talent of these guys. They're taking every bit of Star Wars from all corners, and they're picking the best and some of the worst, but they're making a great, cohesive story and world out of it all, and it's really fun, and it's great to watch as a Star Wars fan.
And let me play my old man Star Wars fan card here because I've seen people on various Facebook groups and YouTube complaining that, oh, what, a rancor? It's not, what is this? It's a pet, it's sweet. What is this? Listen.
Really?
This crap with the rancor, the fact that they are intelligent creatures that you can bond with goes back to the old expanded universe of where Danny Trejo mentions the witches of Dathomir.
Yeah.
Which is, Matt, that's something you've always called out that you wanted to see in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like you want to see them riding the rancors.
That's
that
right.
the rancors are, like Mike said, they're like pit bulls in the fact that they are intelligent and they can bond with people. And
also
people,
that's in Jedi. Remember when Luke killed the rancor?
Because
the keeper was
crying,
bawling his eyes out.
But now
it's a very, very important.
But I've
scene
seen
for Star
people,
Wars.
they totally nerfed the rancor. They're making him a support animal.
Disagree. I cannot wait to see Boba Fett riding through the streets of Mos Espa on a rancor.
As far as I'm concerned, that's worth the $80 annual Disney Plus fee right there. If
it'd be amazing.
If I see
amazing
him on the rancor back and like Black Chrysanthemum next to him, and you know what, a de-aged Harrison Ford and Chewbacca in the Millennium Falcon flying over him, that's it.
Yeah,
that's all I need.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's going to happen.
It will.
It's going to happen.
100%. You don't set that up and then just like leave it. He's going to ride into Mos Espa, and he's going to have the rancor eat that major domo. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh, but he eats the huts.
Yeah, he could eat the huts too.
Well, I just wanted to comment that I think we're seeing a older and wiser Boba Fett, and I think it makes it. I think if they had just had him be like how everyone kind of imagined he was, the show would be boring.
Sure,
but you have him like when he tells the
chrysanthemum,
he's like, he gives them advice.
Just business.
Well, that's the first thing. He doesn't hold a grudge because he's like. So that's why
professional.
If he ever encounters Han, he's not going to be holding a grudge against him.
No, I don't.
Because he's like, take some advice, don't work for slime.
Yeah.
And so I think it works. It makes sense that he's an older and wiser Boba Fett.
I guess we can assume or draw conclusions that his time with the Tuskens and through the tribulations and maturation of that process has changed him a bit and made him more reflective and more of a because he might have just been a cold killer before, but he has gone through quite a change over the course of 4 or 5 years now, right? So I mean, it's been a long time and it's a life-changing thing, and we are seeing things like when he's in the back to tank, he's flashing back to himself as a kid watching his father leave. There is a lot of dynamics to this character now, and to Mike's point, we really do have a very well-rounded Boba Fett, which was only part of speculation before, because obviously there wasn't anything to go on with Boba Fett, really, except for a few scenes. So this character has really taken on a life of its own, and the show is fantastic. I mean, people will, to Mike's point, there's always people that will pick at Star Wars, and you can't be that fan unless you're talking about The Last Jedi. Then everybody can be that fan.
Sure thing.
But
this is still, every episode's been written by Jon Favreau. I can't fault the writing.
It makes sense, and I don't fault that. The only thing I'm concerned about is that we only have a few episodes for this series. It's not like it's going to be, at least right now, there's no plan for a season 2. This is like an encapsulated story.
I predict that we're not quite to the halfway point yet, but I think the last 4 episodes are just going to be like balls to the wall.
Well, I mean, look, if The Mandalorian is anything to go by, they kind of had that same kind of formula for that show too. The second half was a lot more, intense than the first. And we've already seen, look, I'm not complaining, because the second episode of this show was unbelievably exciting. And there were great scenes in this episode too. I'm not complaining about this episode. There's just some really great Star Wars stuff in this episode. Some silliness, but is it any sillier than Jar Jar Binks? Is it any sillier than what Ewoks are by nature? I mean, that's part of Star Wars.
Mike said something the other day to me And I think it was me and Mike were texting after we had watched it, but you hadn't watched it yet, Matt. So we kept you out of the conversation. But Mike said,
right
after he watched episode 2, I feel like I've just watched a Star Wars Dark Horse comic from the 90s come to life. And he said about the biker gangs, he goes, that is an episode of droids come to life. You know,
that's actually very funny. Yeah,
I thought those were very astute observations. Not that I need a live action droids, and not that I'm excusing the, as we can call it, the Mos Vespa chase.
I love that. That's forever going to be known as the Mos Vespa.
Yeah, but you know, it's stuff that's not without precedent. Now, the fact that it's not landing with a lot of people, maybe, you know, I'm not saying they can learn from it because this show's been in the can for about a year now. And I don't know that they need to do a course correction.
What was the name of... Oh, I'm going off in a different direction here. I apologize. In Solo, who was Solo's squeeze?
Kira.
Wound up. Kira.
Amelia Clark.
Who's running the show now that Maul's out of the way?
She
Who took that over? She is, right? So maybe we'll see a little Pike, Crimson Dawn kind of interaction.
I would be
going
very
on.
surprised if she hasn't shot at least a cameo for this.
Right? I mean, these are the kind of shows where these characters can come in and out of. So we're going to see some exciting
and Cad
stuff.
Bane.
I mean, this show is going to
get me
this
Cad
show is going to
Bane,
blow people
live
away.
action Cad Bane right now.
Oh God, could you imagine Cad Bane?
I want
Cad Bane. I've said it from the start. He is as DNA Star Wars as it comes. I want
Cad Corey Burton doing the voice. You could put a stuntman in the suit, but Corey Burton better be doing the talking.
I want
that's it.
Put a new dent in your
Listen,
helmet there.
Dave Filoni is directing, and he wrote the 6th episode. So if we're going to get any sort
Cad
of
Bane.
deep cut fan servicey stuff, I would look to episode 6.
Let's hope. Hey, look, this is the Book of Boba Fett. This isn't just like, you know, the leaflet. We're going to be going through the whole encyclopedia of Boba Fett in this show, let's hope. But anyways, guys, we're going to wrap this episode up. And for every episode of the Book of Boba Fett, we'll be dropping a Carbonite Chronicles. So if you haven't subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast. We've got some great YouTube channels too. So guys, thanks for joining us.
And until next week, the Sarlacc is closed.
Because it's the set, and when he let Kristen go, Kristan or whatever,
Chrysanthemum.
whenever he lets him go,
Mike,
and he let him
say it a few times, and I'll just soundboard you every time you say it.
chrysanthemum.
You know you can't live without this content. So subscribe to the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.